All right. If you can notice that the milk is, it'll boil it away a little too hard, actually, turn it down. But I just want you to see, because it's going to dramatically change to a nice caramelized sauce after a while. But meantime, I've got this beautifully fluffy, light cream cheese and butter with a little bit of salt, and I'm going to add to it the flour. And you know, there's only a few people who can probably taste the difference, but I love to always add the flour in any dough by hand. So whether it's chocolate chip cookie dough or shortbread or anything, I like to add the flour, which is 2 cups, I think. I think this was about it. And I like to add it by hand, and so I stir it in. Now you could do it on the machine, and believe me, most people do. But I find that it doesn't get tough. You know how cookies or any kind of dough can get really tough. The gluten starts to develop with movement, like kneading in bread dough. And in bread, you want it to get tough. You want to develop the gluten. But in the pastry, you don't want to. So you want to actually just mix it until the flour is combined really well and not over-mix it. And you can easily over-mix it with the paddle on the machine. It's so easy to over-mix. And it's harder to over-mix by hand because, you know, you're tired. But I used to even make giant batches, 80-quart batches of cookies, and I would still just add the flour by hand because I'm just obsessed.
This is not the only thing. Okay, so now we're going to take a little bit of fresh lime juice whenever you're working with citrus. You want to roll it like this. That breaks all the juice pods up. So you take that, and of course you want to make sure after you do that, you wipe off your knife blade because the acid, the acidity there with many different things will break down your steel. So you want to wipe it after you do it. And then with a fork, if you don't have a juicer, you just put your fork in there, and then you're going to take this and turn the fork and squeeze the lime, and you can get all this great juice out of that. So if you ever have, lime, it's really hard when you can't get it, that's what you do. So we're taking lime with the guava, and then you can throw that in the food processor, or you can do it by hand, but I had the kitchen do it right back there by hand in the machine. And you can see, so this is what we want. So we've got our cotija cheese and cream cheese with guava mixed with lime, and this is going to be the filling in the empanada with the salt or with the cream cheese dough. Now, if you don't have guava and you're just at home and you think I'm just going to make this, you can take this cream cheese filling with whatever sort of salty cheese you might have in all the blue cheese. If you didn't have guava, you could take strawberry jam or whatever that leftover jam you have in the refrigerator.
You know, you always have about 12 little jam jars in the tiny little.
You don't know what to do.
Just mix them all together, and then mix them with the cream cheese filling, and you'll have a lovely.
And what you get with that is you have the sweetness from the jelly or the guava, and the acidity of the little bit of lime juice, and the saltiness of the cheese mixture, and that makes this wonderful combination in dough.
So you can see this cream cheese dough. Actually, I learned to make this cream cheese dough in Chicago from my dear friend Greg, who was Polish, and it's a kolaczki dough, actually. Not very Mexican, but it really is an easy, delicious dough, and you can make little tiny cookies filled with jams and jellies, and you can make these empanadas like I'm making today. But what you do is wrap it in the saran wrap and stick it in the fridge, and this one's already been refrigerated and it's nice and cold, so I'm going to use that to roll out. But it's one of the easiest doughs you'll ever make because it rolls like a dream. I love to use this French roller pin, and I like to use, a good amount of flour and kind of roll it out from the middle, not quite to the edges. You always want to avoid going over the edge because then you're going to flip it and turn it and go the other direction. And this is how you are able to really make it kind of even. You've got to keep on flipping it. You can't just leave it in one direction because that is where you get like thinner spots and thicker spots.
So then we're taking a little bit of cinnamon and sugar, and this is going to be what we're going to sprinkle on top of the empanada. So we'll just take that and mix that up. And then we're making an egg wash with a whole egg and a little tiny bit of water and maybe a touch of salt in there. And this is going to be the egg wash for making the empanada. Now remember, you're going to see when we go to fold it. The most important thing is that you want enough of the filling. I can't stand to have an empanada that's all dough and not enough filling. But what you have to be careful is that when you put the stuffing in any kind of empanada, that when you fold it over, you have to be able to fold over the dough to hit the other part of the dough. If it hits filling, it won't seal. And as soon as you start to bake it, it opens up and the filling oozes out, and then you don't have anything delicious left inside, just a shell of dough.
One thing you do with a dough like this is you let it rest for just like 15 seconds after the last time you roll it out. So it kind of, when it rests, it kind of retracts a little bit, and then you cut your circles after you let it rest a second, so that it doesn't, you don't find it getting a lot shrinking, having a lot of shrinkage. Oh, look, I got 6 out of this one. And then these little scraps can be put back into another ball and re-roll. You'll notice, and this would be a great thing to do sometime, is eat one of the empanadas that you made with the first rolling, and then eat one that you made with the second rolling, because this one will have worked more, and you'll notice it's a tiny bit tougher. And that's the whole idea. I mean, cooking really is about noticing tiny little changes in the things you make. And if you make them repeatedly, that's the kind of joy of working in a restaurant. If you're going to try to cook a lot at home, your family's just going to say, I'm really sick of that dish. Whereas we get the opportunity to cook for guinea pigs all day long, the same dish, day after day after day, and you get to notice the tiny little changes.
Well, it is true that what happens is that after you make something enough times, you keep tweaking it, and it keeps getting better and better. And one of the things we're always saying to kids is, if you eat that dish, is that like the best thing you've ever tasted? You're not having to tweak it to make it better. Whether it's something as simple as a taco, or something more complicated like American omelet. It's always about constantly tweaking it so it gets better. And ingredients are always changing. So sometimes some tomatoes have more sugar, or onions have more sugar, and so the balance isn't as right, or the line, a recipe might call for one line, but it doesn't have as much juice, so it needs to come. So I would never trust a chef in their recipes, ever, or their All right, so Gathered poblano, I just want you to see, so it's roasted. See how it's just roasted all over, everywhere? Goes into a plastic bag here, and it's going to steam, and then we'll be able to peel it. Same thing with the red pepper.
And if you notice, I put a little rim of egg wash on each one of these little rounds, just around the edge there, with my favorite pastry brush, the one that God gave me, and I use it all the time. We never can find a pastry brush, so we should use our fingers for everything. We have like one, but someone hid it, I think. Pastry brush.
Oh, yeah. Okay, you can never find that.
No. So we just use our fingers. But you can put, I think it's funny when people sell all these fancy contraptions for cooking. That I always say, like, I see those egg separators. I think, what a waste of wasted time. Unbelievable. I mean, all the different things that they sell, But,
and so we started to sell them. Then, oh my God, you should never not buy one of these. So now, egg separator, you need one of these. All right, so while Mary Sue's filling that up with plenty of filling, and you can see how it's not going out to the edges, but as much as she can stuff in the center, I'm going to start on the salad that's going along with it. We love, all over Mexico, on the street they sell bags of fruit and jicama with cayenne and lime, and it's really wonderful. We make fruit salad here, and it's like, so this is just like a version of fruit salad that we want to show you. Again, fruit, rolling around. I don't want to just cut it, I want to cut it, I get a flat side, and now what we're going to do is cut it, clean it for making supremes. So we can cut that straight. There you go. There you go. So that is wow. That must have been a lot of drinks. Okay.
Too much diet, is there too much tequila?
Yeah. Sad. So All we're going to do is follow down along the white, the pith. Try not to cut off too much of the fruit in there. And we're just taking this all off so we can then make the supreme, which are the sections and the segments in here without the membrane on the outside. So you want a big sharp. Whoops. Now,
How are we doing on that?
it either.
At a certain point, I don't like it to get overcooked, which it can. But once it's really nice and hot, you can peel that husk back a little bit, like that, and just get a little more color on the. Just put that on the floor.
When I cook at home, it's so incredible. I cook at home, and I'll just be like cooking, and I just like do that. And my girlfriend will go along and be like, "What? You're at the restaurant?"
Josh comes in all the time and he says, "Okay, I turned 3 burners off. There was nothing on them."
Don't admit that. Don't admit that.
Our shirts got it.
No, that is bad sign. My mother used to be it. Okay. All right. So we got our grapefruit completely clean. Now this is called supreming. See the little membrane right there? You just follow down with your knife right down the side here. Then you go on the other side. Follow down. You do that like that. And you say, now you can go. You can, when you get better at it, you can go with your knife and then just flip it over like, well, you didn't have a drink, you could do that. And then you just go through, and these are called supremes. And you just go through the whole thing, and then you're going to save it. See how you leave the membrane on there? And just flip it, go through. Gosh, that's a little grapefruit on that side. It's probably good to cut it so. Yes. Okay, so then you go through and you've got that, and then what you want to make sure is at the end there, there's more fruit there, but you squeeze all that extra juice into there because that's where all that flavor is. You don't want to not use that, but you don't want to have all of this membrane that oftentimes can be really tough, right? So you do that. Then, I'll save that for my other content later. And then, all right.
I just wanted to show how we put these we make a little border on these empanadas. And also, so see how we fold it over? I don't know if you guys all got to see that because I couldn't get a word in edgewise. And then you want to
I didn't even hear what she said. You?
She doesn't listen either.
Never. Oh my God. Why would
Did I
I
get
do
rid of
that?
that egg wash? And then you want to make sure that you put a little prick in the top of this so you're letting some air out the top in case it gets all bubbly. Put a little egg wash on top, not too much. You want to go kind of lightly. That's why we put a little bit of water in the egg. Although I didn't put water in because I put my flowers in the water over here. So. I don't think I can take the water out of it. And then once you get that all evenly, quickly sort of washed with a little egg, we put the cinnamon sugar on top. Plenty of that.
And then you throw it in the oven. And I was working all morning long to bake